Be a nice guy and move my truck for me.
Yeah, that's.
Here comes the circus, buddy. Three-ring circus.
And this
Hi.
Put this. So that's place to get audio from, because the speakers come up to that microphone. So I mean, they come out that speaker there though, so maybe that's the best. I know you were did perfect. You wanted to give me some. Thank you. So I was nervous. Now I don't usually come on. One person without You're not rolling yet, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you are.
Oh, I do it right away. I turn on right away. But,
Are you saying something like right there? Well, like yeah, if we stood right over there, had the camera there, then you can at least get a side profile instead of like that. That's cool. Would I be cool? And also your neck.
look what I found! Who the hell made this?
Just use that guy. Well, everything is going to come through that speaker. What we did that? Watch it, make sure it's
Yeah, that's all. I had any time in my life.
go for a huggy right now. Like, I literally didn't have an offer. Sorry, man. That's not as important to get a little record.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order the July 11, 2023 Lower Saucon Township Council meeting. Mark, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bononis?
Here.
Mr. Carochi? Ms. DeLeon?
I'm here.
Mr. Engels?
Here.
Ms. Sugar?
Here.
Ms. Sugar is on the phone. Just as a reminder to all council members, you have to hold down the button when you want to speak on the microphone.
All right, thank you, Mark. Everyone, please stand and pledge the flag.
Oh my God. You people put any spirit into that?
All right, council did not meet in executive session today. There was no action to take on any executive session issues. The public comment procedure is available on the sign-in tables as you entered. I would remind everyone of the requirements for public comment, how to conduct yourselves, the time limits, and other issues. If you're not familiar with those, I would suggest you get a copy of those and review them to familiarize yourself. Second item on the agenda tonight's public comment agenda items only, residents and taxpayers only, with a 3-minute time limit. And I will call you in the order that you signed in. All right, the first name on the list is Adam Callan. Adam Callan. Is Adam Callan here? Okay, I'll move to the next. The next is Jeff Gorzinski. Jeff Gorzinski. Gorczynski.
My name is Jeff. Go ahead. My name is Jeff Gorczynski. I live 1966 Barclay Court in Saucon Terrace. I'd like to comment on the second agenda item, which is the rezoning of the land off Apple Butter Road. I'd like to ask the council why, after you've seen the outpouring of community opposition to this, are you not only reconsidering it, but you're expanding it to the whole top, all of the land owned by Bethlehem Landfill? I'd just like to get it straight in my head as to why you consider this to be important, so important that you would do it a second time. The second thing I'd like to ask about the same item is, at least the way I read it, the change says garbage facilities, landfill. It gives permitted, conditional, and special use. Which one is it? It doesn't say if a landfill was to try to expand, which is it? Is it permitted? Is it not permitted? Those are the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Nancy Gorczynski. Nancy Gorczynski.
Nancy Gorczynski, 1966 Barclay Court, Bethlehem, PA. I want to know why we want to have rezoning. It seems like you're taking all of the checks and balances away from what is supposed to be in place so that we just don't turn all of Saucon into a dump. That just seems like opening up the gates for whoever wants to come in and turn what we like our community to be right now and prevent it from becoming the dump of Pennsylvania. I mean, we've got 3 or 4 landfills in the immediate area, and we want to expand it. For what reason? I don't mind paying more taxes. If that's your premise, that you're saving us future taxes, well, how many of you want to have a dump for your...
Ms. Grudzinski, you need to address council, not the audience, please. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll talk loud enough so everybody can hear me. I just would like, if you rezoned anything, for it to become farmland. Something that would preserve what we have now, with some industry coming in, but not a dump that can leach into our water, ruin our property values, and take away what we hope is a future for our community and the people around us. We've seen property values go up in the many years. We've lived in this community for over 30 years. My property value has almost doubled, maybe even more. All right? I would like to see our community to continue to grow, but not with the evidence of something that will pollute and desecrate everything that's around. The fact that some of you were encouraged by the landfill to vote for the landfill, that scares me. All right? You all should be recusing yourself from voting if you took any PAC money, because either you're getting influenced by them because you got PAC money, or you're being influenced by them because they've promised you something in the future or now. I don't know. I have no way of finding that out, but I think you all need to resume looking at why you're voting for these. It's an atrocity. You need.
All right, Ms. Grudzinski, your 3 minutes is up. Unfortunately, we have many people that want to speak today, so I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Next is Deborah Esposito. Deborah Esposito.
Deborah Esposito, I reside at 3496 Drifting Drive. And my husband and I moved here in 2013 from the Poconos because we didn't really like the direction that the Poconos was going in regards to open space and growth. So now I live in a township and a council, the majority of council members who want to rezone hundreds of acres from residential and agriculture to light industrial, when we already have an existing landfill and numerous warehouses. Like so many people are going to talk here, I just don't get it. And I get so frustrated because whatever people say, I don't feel like this council listens. If in your heart you can say, have you gotten anyone for the landfill other than maybe businesses, landfill, none of your constituents. So I ask you to reconsider. I don't think you will. I think your decisions have already been made, no matter what people say. But I just felt compelled to at least try to appeal to your, I don't even know what I asked you to appeal to, but to please reconsider this rezoning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Kathy Pitchell-McGovern. Kathy Pitchell-McGovern.
My name is Kathy Pitchell-McGovern, 4260 Lower Saucon Road, Hellertown, Pennsylvania. First thing I want to say is that I had to not see patients today so I can come here and fight for my home, which is unbelievable. And what am I trying to do? I'm trying to find the Jason Benonis campaign speech. I only have 3 minutes. Excuse me, because there's a ton of them. We've continued to rely heavily on the Bethlehem landfill as a disproportionate part of the tax base. We must continue to control costs. We must also anticipate and seek to diversify the township's tax base to be ready for the potential closure of the landfill. In less than 2 years, I promise to help create the Route 378 Economic Development Task Force. The goal is to improve and promote taxable commercial business in the single largest commercially zoned area of the township. And on and on and on. And then on the bottom, it says, it goes on, I'm sorry. There are no plans for the township for landfill expansion. I remain committed to keeping an open eye. I will consider the interests of all and make informed decisions based on the information available. I also continue to identify opportunities to use existing open space funds to responsibly preserve land for the benefit of the residents and the environment, and on and on and on. And you're making all our homes lose their property values. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Next is Janine Bonham.
My name is Janine Bonham, 4303 Jefferson Avenue. I live in Steel City. First of all, 3 minutes is not enough time to address the concerns I've had about this, that we all have, about changing rezoning. I strongly oppose the rezoning of the proposed section of land from rural agriculture to light industrial. It ruins property values. I can literally hear that disgusting landfill. It's there, we can deal with it, but to expand it is wrong to do. If the air quality for the past summer has told you anything, we need the green space in order to filter the land so we can breathe easier. If you cut down the forest to make room for a landfill, all landfills leak. We've known this since the 80s. They all leak. Landfills are old technology, and there are better ways to deal with the waste of this community, and you're not putting any efforts into finding what other solutions there can be. The community in front of you does not want this landfill, yet you keep plowing forward with it, not listening to your constituents. We can't fathom why this is. Please reconsider this rezoning. It's appalling that you want to make it bigger than the last 275 acres. It's appalling. We don't want this. We don't want a garbage dump in the valley, another one. It's already bad enough we have to drive around and see them dotted across the land. Listen to the people who put you in those seats. I don't think you will. You've proven that. But the people have spoken. They don't want this here. I oppose this rezoning.
Okay, thank you. Next is Victoria Optop Cordero. Victoria Optop Cordero.
Victoria Optop Cordero, Woodfield Drive. I stand here today kind of shocked, but also not shocked, that you proposed 275. That was in October. You admitted last month that the actual 275 was not your own proposal, but quoting Solicitor Treadwell, it was the landfill's proposal. So now, all of the community that lives between Steel City and Route 33, you've chosen to punish by rezoning their land in addition to the landfill. So the landfill parcels of 275, plus the addition of all the parcels, including the Shimersville homestead, which was built in the 1700s, the beginning of our township,
You're late.
which is already under conservation easement. So we have the Helms Tract, a conservation easement. We have the former Bethlehem Steel Tract, a conservation easement. We have the 100+ acres of the Shimersville Homestead, a conservation easement. I know we have some smart people on this township council. Some of them have doctorate degrees, but I can't imagine the elementary concept of keeping conservation property. It's downright atrocious, and I think the community is not stupid, and they know that when a landfill, a developer in our township decides to spend over $100,000, $100,000, folks, that's not to get a statewide person elected or a national, president elected. It's to get a council elected of 11,000 people. A multinational media firm brags about the fact that they spent $100,000 to make sure their client, the landfill, gets the people on council that will do what the landfill, the developer wants. I'm sorry, but the residents say that our township is not for sale, and you should do your duty as an elected official and not answer to the landfill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Dave Bland. Dave Bland.
Dave Boulan, and no, I'm not running for council.
Thank God.
Some of the previous speakers. Appreciate, by the way, some of the comments that are made. I think, especially the last speaker, I find it egregious that these kinds of charges are made, and they shouldn't be. We should be dealing with the fact. Thank you for allowing me to talk, all of you people that had your chance.
Mr. Bland, hold on for 1 second.
Yes.
Folks in the audience, I reminded you at the beginning of the meeting what the conduct policy was for this meeting in terms of blurting out, interrupting speakers, jeering, or doing anything else. If you're not familiar with it, I will again suggest to you that you pick up a copy of it and read it. And while you're doing that, please stay quiet so this gentleman can have his opportunity to speak just as you've had your opportunity and will have your opportunity to speak. Okay? That's how this process works. This is our council meeting. And if you're not familiar with it, that's fine. You can stand and turn your backs. Mr. Bland, hopefully the message has gotten across to certain people. Feel free to proceed with your comments. And we'll be happy to hear them. Thank you.
And I beg your pardon for not addressing you directly. Yes, I have emotions too, but I'm not running an emotional campaign here. I think the bottom line is if one looks at the history of this landfill, it wasn't Lower Saucon Council that sits here now. It clearly was 20 years ago, 23 years ago. There is somebody here that knows about it. And so maybe everybody here ought to understand when Bethlehem Town purchased the property to put in the landfill, if I understand correct, and I can be corrected, I don't mind, but maybe somebody ought to be asking them how this all started and why it's in your lap. Now, the other thing I did read, and I hope everybody understands, all of this documentation, pages and pages, yes, I've been through it, and understand that, yes, this is a landfill area, and it has been growing, and the land near it has been purchased over years and years. The history's all there in the application. So anybody that thinks this thing just popped up yesterday is clearly mistaken. And my understanding, at least when I read it, and I'm not an attorney, I'm a physicist, the bottom line is that this is a coalescence of all the areas into one and rezoning it so, yes, it can be considered as one. If one simply looks at what's on the other side in Bethlehem, not but about a mile or so away, you see massive warehouses, which were, one of the speakers before said, were yours. They're not yours. They're Bethlehem's who reaps the profit. And by the way, it was Bethlehem, the town, that sold the landfill because they were in financial problem, and yet it's in our town. It's in Lower Saucon. So I would say, if you're ready, all of the people here are ready to give up their garbage and keep it at home, I would suggest you do that, because you know what? Today it's this landfill, it's already been shrinned, and all of you people can put up those little signs because that's the way you are. You don't want to know the facts. And I still have 16 seconds.
Actually, Mr. Belen, I'll give you additional time since you were interrupted during your comments.
You see the way that works? You see the way that works? I don't need additional time. I think these people need additional time to sit down and read and understand, and maybe the garbage should be in their house.
Where do you live?
Thank you, Mr. Belen.
Alice Clark, come on over.
All right. Next is Lynn Hill. Lynn Hill.
Lynn Hill. Bethlehem Dump is not the constituent of this council. We are your constituents. In answer to the previous speaker's comments, I would say, and I'll be happy to provide my math for this, less than 3% of the garbage in this dump is from this township. The majority of the garbage comes in early in the morning in enormous tractor trailers from out of state. We also take garbage from other counties in our state, but less than 3% comes from within this township. This dump has been operating since the 1940s, operated without a permit until 1993. It used to only collect garbage from Northampton and Lehigh before Bethlehem Township sold it to Bethlehem IESI, the predecessor to Waste Connections. And at the time, the Township Council that was in majority, and this was in 1998 or 99, allowed them to take out as state trash. So now this dump has burgeoned into holding 11 million tons of garbage. 80 years, 11 million tons, that's enough. 848 acres of forest for a dump? In what planet is that anything that makes sense? It's not proper to really talk about the past because we can't do anything about it. But we can control the future, we can move forward, and our taxes do not have to go up. If we have a council that isn't spending our money right and left, and we are running a surplus now, significant enough to demonstrate that we can move forward without the dump and without a tax increase, as long as we have proper fiscal management. And that means not spending money on lawsuits and other frivolous items.
Thank you. Next is Kyle Cambiati. Kyle Cambiati.
Hello, I'm Kyle Cambiati. I live at 4284 Matthews Avenue. Good afternoon. I'm here to voice my concerns about how the landfill expansion will affect the surrounding communities, specifically Steel City. The smell from the expanded landfill will only add to the side effect of fatigue, headaches, dizziness, vomiting, and loss of coordination felt by local residents. There is also the concern of garbage landslides, which occurs when landslides are poorly managed, similar to natural landslides. These slides are catastrophic to communities and can be triggered by weather or human interaction. Slides can result in the blockage of a major roadways that the surrounding communities and commuting traffic rely on. While these are day-to-day concerns, there are long-term environmental risks that can result from the landfill expansion. Landfill runoff can contaminate the Lehigh River, tainting the downstream waterways of the greater Philadelphia area. Local farms are also affected by toxic runoffs, being very detrimental to the soil. The toxics destroy the farmland's topsoil by stripping of its nutrients. The local wildlife also will be affected, jeopardizing their habitats near the landfill area. Certain animals begin relying on landfills for food, which causes imbalances in the local animal population. These imbalances of predator and prey animals, along with nuisance animals, will have also long-term effect on the township. There will also be an increase in train traffic if the expansion proceeds. I am worried about this due to the recent train derailments that have greater impacted the surrounding areas, especially the one in East Palestine, Ohio. Before that, on September 28, 2022, a train derailment occurred right here in Bethlehem. Both of these accidents came from Norfolk Southern Company, and I'm concerned is if it happens in Steel City, it would be devastating to our community and catastrophic to the environment. This land is deeply personal to me and my community. I can recall countless happy memories with my father and brother, getting to explore and enjoy this beautiful land. Steel City is special, and I do not want that to be forever ruined for temporary monetary gain.
Okay, thank you. Next is Stacy Mazinski. One more time, Stacy Mazinski.
Good afternoon. Thank you for destroying my workday to be here today. Appreciate that very much. So do the attorneys that I work for. Thank you. Stacy Mazinski, 4231 Roberts Avenue. Watching this council's actions is like watching a puppet show. I have witnessed a judge tell concerned citizens of this township that this council's actions are procedurally flawed. I sat and listened to Northampton County's board, the county in which this township resides, tell us their disdain for your actions. I even received a letter telling me that Lower Saucon Township Ordinance number 2022-02 is void of initio. But yet you press on like you have strings being led by one party. You are so blinded by greed that you can't wait to destroy the, as you say in your website, the pastoral farmlands, tranquil woodlands, and gentle rolling hills the township is recognized for. This council refuses to hear the citizens of this township as you are tasked to do so under Township of Lower Saucon Part 1, Sections 5 to 8, E, Procedures 2B, which reads in part, and I quote, "After considering the desirability of any such ordinance, the council may, by majority, vote at such meeting, direct the solicitor to prepare a written proposal." Every meeting on record via the meeting minutes have clearly shown that the citizens of this township disdain and oppose all of your rezoning activities. The only party who finds these actions desirable is one that is headquartered in the state of Texas. We have all consistently expressed to this council our opposition to the rezoning of our lands, and I am here to tell you again that rezoning 848 acres of land from rural to agricultural is an atrocity, and we are opposing it, and we don't want it. So if you would please kindly listen to us yet again, we are here to tell you we don't care for your rezoning. We oppose it, and I know personally the person who handles my strings is the Lord. I don't know about you, but I think we all know who your puppet master is. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Anna Marie Crown.
Hello, I'm Anne Marie Crown and I'm from Wasserdas area. At the last council meeting, Mr. Carochi remarked about the total of host fees from BLC since 1999, $40 million as I recall. On the other side of that coin, I wonder about the generational effect on the environmental health and safety of our residents and our natural resources. Is that what came also with the $40 million in the past 24 years? We've recently learned that the Lehigh River is on the top 10 list of the most unhealthy rivers in the country. And very, very recently, we learned about the unhealthy tap water in almost half the faucets in our country. And from that U.S. Geologic Survey, we know that tap water contains forever chemicals, which are most prevalent in urban areas, near airports, and near industry, landfills, and wastewater treatment plants. Forever chemicals have a generational effect, as they have already been found many times in umbilical cords. Our Commonwealth also made the top 10 list of the 10 worst states in the country for water quality. We are at number 44. There is a database with a watchdog group that tracks data, and I looked at Lower Saucon Authority for 2014 to 19. 15 total contaminants were detected, with 9 exceeding healthy guidelines. And interestingly enough, the city of Bethlehem had exactly the same score as we did. I would hope that as council, you make decisions of generational impact that you consider not only the fiscal benefits to the township, the zoning needs, but the environmental health and safety needs of every resident in this township. If I may suggest an idea to you, consider forming a committee for environmental health and safety. And if I may suggest, it takes great courage to make an about face with anything. And I sincerely hope that Lower Saucon Township makes an about face with this zoning. And I would love to live to see the day when Lower Saucon Township can be a leader in this Commonwealth. Forever chemicals are in our air, they're in our soil, they're in our water. They are in the blood of 98% of all Americans. I know I won't live to see it, but I hope for a day when babies born in this township are born without forever chemicals in their umbilical cord. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Frank Colombo. Frank Colombo.
I'm here again. And I'm going to continue to keep coming back and voicing my opposition. Well, first I want to ask, at the last council meeting, Jason, you said there's rules of decorum of this process for the 3 minutes. And nobody responds back except for when it's convenient for you guys. So I want to know, are you guys just going to listen to me, or are you going to give me some rebuttal back to my questions? Because there's been many speakers at the last meeting that you guys take it upon yourselves to follow the rules that you just decided to make up on the spot. So either comment on everybody's comments or don't make any comments. Okay? I want to start off with that. Secondly,
well, Mr. Palumbo, let me respond to that. You can read the ordinance, and it says that we're allowed to ask for questions for clarification, which is what we were doing. So I don't have any questions of clarification right now. I may, but I'll allow you to proceed.
These making statements. These were not asking clarification questions. Okay. So first of all, or secondly, I should say, I want to thank you guys for getting this community together, because we all now stand strong and united. Amen. I've learned what great people we have in this community. We have a common bond now, and it's to fight the council members that are keep pushing for this trash. We're creating Mount Trashmore here. 20 billion pounds of garbage is what we're looking at in the next 30 years, and that was based upon the 275 acres. I'm not surprised you went and stuck us the finger and said, instead of 275, Lower Saucon, we're gonna give it to you for 848 acres now. How do you like that? Is that some kind of spite that you're trying to do here? There's no purpose to rezone all this area that you're trying to rezone for literally one puppet master. And we all know who they are, they're sitting in the back of the room right now. They put 100 grand into the PAC, and I guarantee the next election we're gonna see more, if not, the same if not more. So in regards to the rezonings that we're doing, I don't see any foresight and planning on any of this. There's no studies done, there's no impacts being analyzed. It's just like, let's just rezone it all. Shit, why don't we just rezone the entire freaking township while we're at it? And turn the whole township into a damn garbage dump. This council's reckless, irresponsible, unethical, and borderline criminal. That's my opinion. And I think there's a bunch of others here that feel the same thing. Because the puppet masters are clearly pulling the strings here. And I don't see what the end game is here, but I sure as hell hope it's worth it. Because this entire community is strongly against it. And not just the Lower Saucon. We have multiple communities and municipalities around here. They're against this. 20 billion pounds of freaking garbage in 30 years. That's absolutely insanity. When you have 8 million people downriver that are going to be drinking these forever chemicals and whatever crap that comes out of the leachate from this dump. And we can't stop what was already in there now, but we can certainly stop from creating more garbage into the future. So I hope you guys can sleep at night when you know you're polluting the shit out of everybody in this township and 8 million more people downstream.
Hey, thank you. Next is Jackie Palumbo. Jackie Palumbo.
Jackie Palumbo, 2566 Kings Mill Road. Why did I move here? Well, its location. It was convenient for both my husband and I as far as jobs go. It was in the middle. We also liked the rural environment and the appreciation and respect the community had for that. It was refreshing. We also liked the cooperation and the goodwill between Lower Saucon Township and Hellertown. There wasn't any conflict. Everyone got along. It was really beautiful. And we also moved here because of the zoning. Because of the reassurance from the builder that the dump was closing in 5 years. Because of all the easements that were out there and all the protected environments. Because the council was planning ahead so that when the dump closed, our taxes would not increase without having that hosting fee. They were going to make sure that that happened. And you know what? That did happen. We don't need the hosting fees. Another thing you always bring up too is if you don't like it, leave. Well, you know what? I like it here. I like it even more now since I got to know my neighbors. And as my husband said, we have you to thank for that. I came to the December 22nd meeting to find out what was going on. I believe in democracy. If this was the direction our community wanted to go in, I wouldn't have stood in their way. I would have just moved. So I asked 2 questions. I asked, who is in favor of the dump expanding? I looked around. Nobody stood up, raised their hand. I asked, why is garbage good for me? How will be having more garbage 1.2 miles away from my home benefit me and improve my quality of life? I'm still waiting for that answer. And there's all this stuff about zoning, and just so we're all clear, zoning is how local government regulates and develops land within its control. It is broken down into multiple categories to help balance a city to ensure proper land use and provide value to citizens that own property. As well, zoning helps protect the local environment and keep property taxes and values stable. To promote, protect, and facilitate any or all of the following: the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Coordinated and practical community development of proper density of population, emergency management preparedness and operations, airports and national defense facilities, and the provisions for that. Oh, I only have 23 seconds, okay. And you know who got zoning right? Hellertown Borough. Because the reason for this, because adding more housing would have caused congestion and decreased the quality of life for the existing residents. Zoning is supposed to protect property values and a person's quality of life. And that happened on both ends of the town.
Mrs. Palumbo, your time's up. If you could wrap up your thoughts, please.
That happened on both ends of the town. I'm sure you don't know what morality is, but you do know what immorality is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Ginger Petrie. Ginger Petrie.
Ginger Petrie, 2626 Reddington Road, Hellertown, Pennsylvania. My monologue is about rezoning the 848 acres for your best friend, the landfill. I'm attending 2 funerals today. One funeral is for a woman who loved riding her horse through my beautiful fields. She would enjoy listening to the birds chirping and actually enjoy the deer popping out to scare her horse for an extra adrenaline rush. She is now dead, laying in a box. She will not be able to breathe fresh air ever again. The current funeral is for Lower Saucon Township. Quoting from your website introduction, the township covers an area of 23.3 square miles, through which run 100 miles of public roads and PennDOT state-owned roads. This is the best part. It is recognized for its pastoral farmlands, tranquil woodlands, and gently rolling hills. I looked up pastoral just to be sure. There's 2 definitions as adjectives. One is in quotes, especially land or a farm, quote, used for or related to the keeping or grazing of sheep or cattle. The second is, in the Christian church, concerning or appropriate to the giving of spiritual guidance. Well, the land that you're planning on rezoning has all that. As a noun, it's a work of literature portraying an idealized version of country life. That is what we also have there. That is in your website. This statement is very true to the land that you are changing, so we are all here trying to evade the death of our township. 3 of you on the council may not appreciate the beauty of the nature that surrounds us, but we the people out here do. You are making a grave mistake changing this land. If it's fame you're seeking, you've got it. 2 of you are running this dog and pony show, but it's the 3rd man that actually has the power. I request that you change the website. Let's see how you attract new residents with this volume of acreage becoming industry and garbage. Please consider letting us breathe clean air while we are alive. Look at the time. 32 seconds. Let's take a moment of silence to remember the township as it was. Watching the clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Frank DeMore. Mr. DeMore, public comment is for residents and taxpayers only. I see that you're signed in here on behalf of St. Luke's. Is St. Luke's a taxpayer?
Not the Lower Saucon Township.
All right, well,
Mr. Bernardus, I'm going to ask that you recognize that St. Luke's is obviously affected by this ordinance amendment.
well, I'm not going to recognize that St. Luke's is affected by this proposed amendment, but I will allow you the 3 minutes to speak since you're here on behalf of your client.
Thank you very much.
St. Luke's doesn't pay property taxes.
Sorry, Tom, what did you say?
St. Luke's doesn't pay property taxes anyway.
We are exempted.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Frank DeMore. I'm here representing St. Luke's University, the Anderson campus specifically, and I'd just like to read a statement on their behalf. Our position from the beginning has been that the expansion of this landfill is contrary to public health, safety, and welfare, will have a devastating effect on the surrounding residences and our hospital, which provides a vital public service to the residents of this township and our community as a whole. It's inconsistent with the conservation easements and will violate the law. At least before you took an aggressive step by allowing the expansion by conditional use. At least under that model, it acknowledged that certain uses by their very nature can be incompatible to adjoining properties in the environment. And rather than providing carte blanche to developers who wish to establish those uses, they were at least required to go through some hearing, be responsible for establishing some standards. That's gone now. We participated in that process, and it was becoming increasingly clear that the landfill operator could not meet its burden. The current proposal permits by right the very same use that may have been rejected during the conditional use process, and it's not defensible. Adopting the two ordinances just months apart without any change in circumstances will be evidence on its own that the standard to be applied from prohibited to conditional to permitted was not well thought out from a land planning perspective, but rather the result of the township only being concerned with one ultimate goal: allow this expansion at all costs and without regard to proper zoning, land planning, and fiduciary standards. Even if you weren't sure it should have been a prohibited use, you supposedly considered the issue and determined that it should be a conditional use. The ordinance will be challenged. By adopting landfill as a permitted use, the township's ability to defend that challenge is further prejudiced. We're asking that you reconsider this. St. Luke's reserves all legal rights, and we intend to challenge this ordinance.
Mr. DeMille. Mr. DeMille. Before you sit down. Your comments were directed to landfill expansion, and as a lawyer, what's proposed here before us is to change this area from RA to light industrial, okay? Folks, okay, this happened during the last meeting. This is not going to be tolerated during this meeting. Folks, if you cannot allow council to do their job, and if you can't allow the speakers the time... Folks, this is my last warning. The next person who blurts out, I'm going to ask Chief Barnes to start removing people. Okay? We have a meeting to conduct here. There are plenty of people that want to speak, and we have township business to be conducted. So if you can't conduct yourselves in accordance with our policies and procedures, you're going to have to leave this meeting room. Do you understand that? No. Thank you. All right, Mr. DeMore, back to my question. So you were talking about landfill specifically, and as you know as a lawyer, this is being proposed to rezone from RA to light industrial, and within the light industrial category, there are a number of different uses, not just landfill. But let me just focus on your landfill part of your comments here. Where does St. Luke's deposit its waste? Does any of St. Luke's waste come into the Bethlehem landfill?
I have no idea.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Thank you. All right, next we have Mike Sika. Mike Sika.
Mikey.
Mr. Sika, hold on for 1 second. Mr. Ozimic, please refrain from blurting out. If you cannot do that, I'm going to ask once that you leave the room. And if you don't leave at that occasion, I'm going to ask the police officers to remove you from this room. Okay? That's my last warning directed to you. Mr. Sika, please proceed.
It's Michael Ciccarello.
I apologize for mispronouncing your last name.
That's fine. I live on Quarry Lane in Hellertown, right next to the proposed light industrial expansion. Now, I am stuck on your better alternative technologies that were brushed over by Mary Ann Barger in the past, where she had an elaborate pipe system for things like methane production. What are you going to do with the tainted spillage that's going to affect all the wells around the area? Are you going to give us weekly water monitoring? Are you going to foot that bill? If so, it should be on a weekly basis. You're destroying the property. You're taking away a lot of the historical foundation of the community. You're going to affect tourism, that's going to bring in dollars, you're destroying the area. You know, nothing that you are doing is positive for any of us. You know, you are the most hated person in this room. You know, you truly are. You know, and you seem to revel in that. You know, when it comes to the better alternative, you have all these empty warehouses. Why don't you utilize them to reduce the amount of waste and VOCs and use the existing land properly where you can stay sustainable with your money maker that's handing you cash to be their fanboy. You know, it doesn't make any sense to any of us. You know, you're clearly cashing in on something. We don't like it. You are so corrupt. You know, there's no way that you are doing anything positive for this community. It's only for you. What's your vendetta against Hellertown? Why don't you stand up and tell us why you're doing this? It makes no sense. And for the physicist in the room that's very narrow-minded,
Sir, direct your comments to council, not to anybody else in the audience. Again,
Okay.
you'd read the policy, you'd understand that you're not supposed to direct derogatory
okay,
comments to others.
we can move on now.
Your time is up, sir. Next is Claudia Martellos. Claudia Martellos.
Claudia Markellis, 2545 Quarry Lane. In previous, when I became a party, it was measured my house, my property that I live with Michael, from one of the boundaries of the landfill. The lawyer for Waste Connections came up with 0.34. Add 5 feet to that and you're at my front door. That's where our property is. Everyone's been saying in here for multiple meetings, we don't want this. Many people are asking, why? What's the deal? No answers, no changes. In my opinion, you have no right to be on this council. You are not speaking for us. You are not caring about us. You and Mr. Carochi are a waste of time as far as we're concerned. I want you to resign. No question. You know, I don't need any extra time because I have said everything I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Next is Larry Optop. Larry Optop.
Yes, my name is Lawrence Optoff, and I live on Reddington Road. And for the life of me, I can't understand what your motivation is for this. That's above board. Now, there might be some motivations that are going on that's going under that we can't see, but I can't understand what your motivation is that's above board. I mean, everybody asks you these questions, I never hear the answer, and I got a feeling, because I see Mr. Carochi over here doesn't even bother showing up on time, so I think he's already got his mind made up because maybe there's something going on under the table. I don't know. Now, you're here because you have to run the thing, but we all know that there was a lot of money spent to get you elected. Now, I'm just wondering if there's some kind of payback going on here. And now, you lost this first time you went around, so now you made it even bigger. So we're gonna really get everybody. And hopefully that's, I'm hoping that you get caught in this somehow. You and your friend over here who can't bother making it on time. Because he's already got his mind made up. I'm surprised you don't have earplugs in your ears, because you don't care really what anybody says. So, I just hope that this goes back to haunt you. I really do. And I suggest that if you ever get a flat tire around in the area where Lower Saucon is in Steel City, I would suggest you call AAA and hide in your car.
Okay, thank you. Next is Ped Optop.
My name is Peg or Margaret Obtoff, and I live at 2700 Reddington Road, Hellertown. I want to say that we purchased in Lower Saucon because it was a beautiful place. We have a beautiful view from our home. And now I hear that with the new expansion plans, not only is it including the dump, but also the expansion for light industrial will include areas that will impact us as far as what we see. And also, I'm asking that the council in general adhere to common sense when it comes to the landfill expansion. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants it. So if we don't want it, why is it that you're proposing it again? And proposing and also creating a situation where all the people who have opposed the landfill in the past are faced with a revenge proposal to include their land that will devaluate our property values. Again, I ask that the council, instead of using falling to a revenge tactic, that they vote not to expand the landfill and not to expand it over to Route 33, especially because it impacts all the people in Steel City, and it's just a revenge thing, and we should not be motivated by revenge. Okay, that's all I have to say. I hope you all understand my position. I apologize for my lack of coordination of speech, but I had a bad accident, and the accident has affected it. Okay, so again, everyone here, please use your common sense in voting. What do the people want? If they don't want it, don't vote for it. And again, that's for all council members, not just those who have bad reputations with some people in here, but for all council members, please use your common sense in how you vote. Thank you, and for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. And I wish you a speedy recovery. Next is Russ Sutton. Russ Sutton.
My name is Russ Sutton. I live at 2133 Saucon Avenue. I'd like to know, council, have you ever looked at your office in the township, at the township seal? Do you see a dump in there? It's pastures, farms, hills, land. No dump. You should change it into a dump, but that's not my reason here. My wife and I are totally reject the township's proposal to rezone Apple Butter Road. What purpose does it serve other than serve Waste Connections? This will allow Waste Connections to expand at any point of their choosing without any oversight, because you're doing away with conditional and exceptional use. How does this benefit the township residents, other than destroying pristine pastures, forests, and fields? I think Mr. Bononis has a conflict of interest and bias by being on the landfill committee as well as being president of council here. When you offered to run for council, you went door to door and asked residents, do you support landfill extension? And you said no. And many people here heard you say no. You lied to us. That's another thing. And also, a funny thing, the landfill PAC supported you and others' elections. Getting back to zoning, what light industrial entities want to use this area to develop? We, the citizens, request a list of projected light industrial clients that would want to use this land. And the funny thing about this land, there's no township roads there. They're PennDOT roads. They don't have utilities, water, or anything to support these businesses. And I wanted to show you on the township map where light industrial exists. And the only place it exists is Steel City, right here. This is the only place. There's no light industrial anywhere in the township except Steel City. So how can you make a comment, this is the best use of the land, when you didn't consider any other land in the township at all? None. There's no other light industrial. Can you say this is not true? This is your map. And then to top that off, my advice to council, you have 23 rules of engagement. Guess what? You violate them last The last meeting was the worst meeting I've ever been to in my life. And Mr. Bononis, what you repeated on that card and spelled things out which were obnoxious, objectable, and it's on the record, that's a personal issue with you and somebody else. You shouldn't do that. And Mr. Karoshi, if you get your nose out of your phone, you insulted one of our members here at the township that had nothing to do with Lehigh's asbestos. I put you both on the record for being in violation of your own rules. You should listen to the residents, and you should go to other council meetings and see what real council meetings are and how they really represent the people.
Okay, thank you. Next is Elsa Brown. Elsa Brown.
Hi, I'm Elsa Brown, 1916 Dartford Road. I'm actually here to comment on 3 things, not just the rezoning for the light industrial. I actually would like to have more information, and I'm not very happy about us changing the zoning for along 378, and also with the looking at the language for the underwater tanks of that. Couple of reasons for that. Part of it is that's just coming from one outside company again. Same reason why we had one outside company asking for us to rezone over on the other side of the township. I moved here in 2001, and maybe a couple years after that, Upper Saucon Township rejected. Sheets wanted to develop a big gas station on the corner of 309 and I think Center Valley Parkway, and it was rejected because of the geology and the danger of putting in underground tanks, and that's even further away from where the zinc mine is. Now, I've come back over to this side over here. I don't want, it was rejected 20 years ago. Nothing's really changed. This location's even closer to the zinc mine, and I've had a sinkhole both in my backyard and on the street in front of my house. And one of the things that I learned going through that process is we don't know in this area how far that zinc mine went. And I also have experienced the personal effects of what it's like to have a sinkhole happen. And if you don't know where Dartford Road is, it's very close to Colesville Road, which makes it pretty close to where we're talking about putting this in. And there's other ones of my neighbors who've had this. So this, I really don't want, I'm against rezoning just to be able to put in a gas station, which is going to require underground tanks, which are going to be detrimental to our area because that's an unstable area. In general, I also don't want to see us, the character of our township, when I moved here and I've paid that 0.25% extra tax for how many years, I've lived here since 2001, is to keep our township rural and residential. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is David Bleem. David Bleem. One more time, David Bleem. Okay, I'll move on. Mike Topping. Mike Topping.
This is quite a meeting. You can hear me now? Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I remember working with Priscilla many years ago for certain activities. But I'm a member of the Saucon Creek Watershed Association, the Bethlehem Environmental Advisory Council, the Delaware River Shad Fishermen's Association, the Northampton County Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs. In fact, I was the president of both of those last two organizations up until a couple of months ago. And of course, I'm also on the board of the Northampton County Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Advisory Board. And belonging to all these boards, I'm a conservationist. I'm an environmentalist for much of my active life. I was a city planner for the city of Bethlehem, also for the city of Easton, and also for Bethlehem Township as part of my career, if you will. all of this has advised me that this is a bad idea, which will help promote Lower Saucon Township as a garbage dump of the East Coast. And I think you really should think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bilal Khan. Bilal Khan.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not going to reiterate the many things that you've heard in the last half hour or so. I'd like to say that this is my third meeting that I've come to. I said I would walk in here and under the assumption that everyone is rational, accomplished, and immoral at the other side of the table. I mean, I'm sure that if something happens to your kids that's immoral, you would know that that's immoral. So I have to begin with this assumption that everyone who is on council is behaving from their vantage point rationally. Now, from what I've heard my fellow citizens say, one of the things besides their objections is that their total incomprehension of your motivations and the rationale behind the actions that you've taken. So I'd like to summarize 3 questions. And it would be great if after public comment, those types of questions might be discussed by you if you choose to consider that. The first is, why does the council feel that rezoning 800 acres, now that the 275-acre proposal has stalled, that these specific 800 acres should be rezoned from RA to LI? Why is that in the interests of township citizens? And there you could speak about the costs of doing it versus the benefits of doing it and the needs. That's typically how, something is justified, I imagine. The second question is, why the relinquishing of conditional use and moving in favor of doing things as a, quote, matter of right? Why is that in the interests of the citizens of Lower Saucon Township? It's a very simple question. Lots of legal counsel here on the board. You could address that. And the third is, you have a room full of people who have concerns and fears. You clearly must think they got something wrong, right? Otherwise you'd be saying that all those people are irrational. So from a place of assuming that everyone is acting rationally, what do you think that the people in this room have gotten wrong about the situation? Why are they not rational? Okay, so if you don't explain and address these questions, I hope you would give me a minute just to finish. If you don't explain your rationale, then you open the door to fuel further suspicions about your motives, what's going on, why is it going on. By addressing these questions and providing information transparently, it's a better long-term...
Mr. Khan, I need to interrupt you. Your 3 minutes is up. We have several other people that want to speak, so if you could wrap up your comments, please.
Okay, yes. Finally, I just want to say, history is made by people who have courage, and there's an awful lot of video footage of this council sitting here and listening to people objecting and then voting in stark opposition to the things that the people are saying, even if you were just acting out of self-interest. I don't see how continuing along this path forwards your self-interest even. So I hope you'll have the courage to change course.
Thank you. Next is Sal Galliano. Sal Galliano. One more time, Sal Galliano.
Mr. Carochi, are you present or are you sitting in your phone there? That's all I've ever seen out of you every time you sit here. Your nose buried in your phone. This is for this business, not your business. Sorry. I thought I lived in the United States of America, a democracy, where We the people, not you, the council, make up our laws and decisions for us. Are we in a socialist republic? You've all heard us here. And then you got pissed off when we kind of got a little better side of you. And you said, well, yeah, we can just go and make another 600 acres light industrial just because you're mad at us because we got a little better on you. I came here for exactly what everybody else has been saying. A rural place to raise my family, to live a healthy life. I came here because God said, this is your land, my land, your land. Let's keep it our land. God made us stewards of the land. Let's keep it that way. I want to raise my family healthy. I can't do that with all that leachate running off. Everybody said everything that I already had to say, so I'm just going to go a little different. But like they say, you want tourists. You want to bring tourists into this town. We can't do that if we're going to stink all the time. And like somebody already said, what I had a thought of, why not make the whole damn town a light industrial, or heavy industrial, or business? Who cares about rural agriculture? It don't feed your family. It feeds mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Laura Ray. Laura Ray.
Laura Ray. I also want to confirm that I'm not happy about having to disrupt my work week to be here. The fact that you feel compelled to repeatedly switch meeting dates and times to make it more difficult for the public to attend showcases how much you want to shut down public input, and I'm very happy to see that it backfired. It's ridiculous enough when you suggested changing landfill use from special exception to conditional use, but now to recommend it as a permitted use? Mr. Bononis, at our last meeting, you said you didn't see the need for conditional use. The conditional use hearings seem to accomplish not a lot. So, why don't we have landfill use approved as a matter of right? No need for council approval. I think this is the most ludicrous statement yet. There is no place that has landfill as a use by right. The degree to which you're willing to bend over backwards to please the garbage dump company is an outrageous abuse of power. Having a majority on council members that don't even bat an eye at any of this is despicable. Stating that individuals that live there can continue to live there and do whatever they want is not true. Unless, of course, they want to go into some light industrial business. Because LI does not allow for residential development or other uses normally associated in rural areas. There's no demand for this much LI in the township. The area being proposed is not appropriate at all. It's remote. There's no easy access, has narrow, windy roads with no shoulders. There's no water and sewer out there, and the small bridges aren't meant to be carrying these heavy 80-ton trucks. We're blessed to have these beautiful rural areas in our township, and having a majority on council that seem hell-bent on destroying this is an atrocity. Revenge, spite, and vindictiveness, these are not reasons to make zoning changes. Lower Saucon residents deserve so much better.
Thank you. Next is Kurt Balch. Kurt Balch.
Kurt Balch, Reddington Road. Well, hello again, everyone, and happy birthday, America. Last time we had this conversation about rezoning, it was just before Christmas, and now it's midday just after the 4th of July. I know that some would accuse the council of trying to position these meetings to minimize attendance and shield themselves from community input, but we know you're just very festive. So, we're here again about rezoning. You see, the last time you tried to sneak the switch of over 200 forested acres that roll directly into the Lehigh River from rural agricultural to light industrial for the purpose of landfill expansion, you got your hands slapped by Northampton County. Now, no one likes getting their hands slapped, and even fewer like having it done publicly. But gang, if you're gonna try to jam through a zoning change in the dark of night in the middle of the holidays, you've gotta make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's. I figure a bunch of lawyers would have known that. But it's no one's fault but your own that you got smacked on the nose with a rolled up newspaper for piddling on the carpet. Really, thought a few more lawyers would have known that. Now, be that as it may, we see that rather than learning from your reprimand, instead of tempering your plans, instead of moderating your expansionist aims, you, our betters, have decided to come back suggesting that the entirety of 848 acres of rural agricultural land and property be rezoned to light industrial. That's over 500 acres of privately owned land be rezoned to light industrial against its current owner's wishes, so that our council can show us who we've been messing with. Well, I hate to break it to you, but dogs that get punished for piddling on the carpet, they usually don't fare better when they spitefully take a dump in their owner's shoes. You'd think lawyers would know that.
Thank you. Next is Chris Gurrow. Chris Gurrow.
Chris Gurrow, Lower Saucon Township. Anyone whose campaign material and other support was paid for by a super PAC funded with over $60,000 of landfill money should recuse themselves from any votes regarding the landfill. Second, I oppose the rezoning amendment, which will allow the landfill to expand for all the reasons already mentioned. And three, there was another longtime council member, Sandy Yerger, who voted against it, and I hope we hear more from her.
Thank you. Next is Jay Palos.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Pauls, and I live in 2596 Reddington Road on a newly built home less than a quarter mile from the proposed landfill that was supposed to expire 5 years from now. I can stand here and talk about how the dream my wife and I planned for, worked hard for, including all the sacrifices we made to remove our boys from Easton to a quiet place in Lower Saucon we could be proud of. I could also talk about how that was quickly ripped away from us no more than 3 months after our first night in our new paradise. A paradise we chose solely because the landscape was supposed to be protected through rural agricultural zoning. But I'm not going to do any of that. Truth is, we didn't know any better. We were completely blindsided by the ugly, finer details that were already in movement behind the curtains involving our current board. In fact, we all were. Had my wife and I known about this before our pursuit, I probably wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't be standing here fighting for my land, my life investment, and most importantly, the health of my 2 boys that I owe everything to. It sickens me that I even have to stand here and stress how much you're failing not just my children, but all the children in the Lehigh Valley just for your gain. Our generation is about to hand them over a cruel world. Between overpopulation, climate change, a troubled economy, jobs that are about to become obsolete, they have it tough enough. At the very least you could do is preserve their home, our home. So instead of standing here begging at deaf ears, I want to use my unfair allotted 3 minutes of regulated speech to talk to not just you, but my fellow residents, the real people of Lower Saucon and all surrounding townships. Do not be fooled by their antics. It is obvious in the last meeting that the only tactic certain members is not to only get a rise out of us with this new immoral proposal, they're also trying to scare us, weaken us, take away our spirits, but don't be fooled, we are not going anywhere. You even stopped trying to hide the strings that move you. What I'm trying to say is your whole platform is based on a lie. And you can count on us being right side of polls come election time. And may God have mercy on your soul.
Thank you. Next is Mark O. Mark O.
You're not smiling. Hello. My name is Mark Ozemek. I live on Reddington Road. And Jason Bananas is playing with his phone, which is being recorded on council video too. So, lots of people said stuff, but I'm here to point one thing out. What was it? Like a spoiled child, we have 3 of them on the board who didn't get their way. So now they want to come back and screw a whole bunch of private people. But I don't know what it's going to get you. I don't know what the rezoning of a total 800 and some acres is going to get you, except for what the landfill wants. Because as far as the private residencies go, that ain't going to change anything. And you contradicted yourself. When you did it to Easton Road, you said, oh, that won't change anything about taxes. But then when you did it to us, you said, oh, it could increase the taxes for us. Well, I'll pay the taxes I owe on what I'm zoned at now. As a matter of fact, I'd like to find a way to have an X amount of dollars deducted from my taxes to pay for Treadwell's cost that you inflicted upon all of us. What else? I'm just full of things. I'm just lost. Oh, I'd like to point out that you screwed me out of $440 because I should be hanging 40 feet in the air from a rafter, working. But I went to work early half a day, came home to attend your meeting that you just pleasantly throw whenever you want to. So, poor Priscilla. Look at your classmates that you're stuck playing with. You know, before I left, I talked to my boss. He said there's one town in Pennsylvania that doesn't pay any taxes. You know why? Because of the landfill. They built a school, they built a fire department, they did all kind of stuff. And none of the residents pay taxes because of the landfill. But yet, the landfill people are here, and you're there, and there's nothing for the people, except for what they've been given for the last 20 years. So people are right. If we get rid of you guys and curb the wasteless spending and the bull crap, you know what? We probably could live without their money. You know, like others said, you know, God bless your souls. You're supposed to pray for your enemies instead of kill them.
Okay, Mr. Zimick, your time's up. Next is Linda Lawrence. Linda Lawrence. One more time, Linda Lawrence. Okay, I'll move on to Robert Blasco. Robert Blasco.
Ready? I am opposed to the expansion. I am opposed to the changing of the zoning to accommodate the expansion. I know that there is more than one reason why you want to include this other acreage, but I'm sure that the main reason is to expand the landfill. That's what's driving the whole thing. I have a lot to say but I'm gonna save a lot of it for non-agenda items because that's where it belongs. I hope that you all stick around to hear what I have to say later. There's been enough said already, and I endorse everyone's opinion and what they presented so far. There's no use me repeating it other than to say I oppose this expansion, this changing from rural agricultural to light industrial. I can also say that to be able to get all this in a minute and a half, you can tell I've been becoming a master of haiku.
All right, thank you. Next is Cesar Medina. Cesar Medina.
Medina, sir.
Medina.
9594 Arlington Road, Hellertown. I came from Long Island, New York. I was a New Yorker. I thought my family needed something better. It was going crazy. So we came here. I'm a minister, I'm a reverend. I serve my community over there, and I saw issues, and I was vocal about it. I had no problem. My first township meeting here was a shocker when I saw the level of bias and the uncertainty of the people's future. Then the whole landfill thing came up. That was a whole different ball game. My neighbor, Mr. Paulus, I saw him and his wife Morgan in the news dropping their lap. I remember there was a certain ruler, and then a guy came up and said, in the name of the people, let my people go. And then the ruler said, bricks, I need the same number of bricks, but no straw. And I hear the same thing happen here. Not 275, no. Let's make it 8, let's make it 1,000 acres of what you don't want. I gotta tell you this. You see France burning? Our young people hate us. You know why they hate us? Because of our hypocrisy, materialism, and lack of love. Our heart of stone is making the people in the world divisive, haters, and that level of violence that we see on the other side of the pond is coming. And God help us all. You have the chance to make a difference. And you have the chance to make $1. What are you gonna do? You're gonna answer to a higher authority. Almighty God says in Psalm 146 verse 7 that He judges the cause of the needy. We must be aware that this life is more than houses and buildings and economy. It's about love, it's about the truth, and it's about doing the right thing. People, do the right thing. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. I believe that concludes the public comment on agenda items. I'm sorry, there's someone who didn't sign in.
Get here at 12:30, getting out of work. Diane Hollowell, Lower Saucon. I just don't understand your end game. Sometimes I feel like I live in Texas and you're just trying to suppress your constituents, you know, what they're fighting for. Really? 12:30 on a Tuesday? And I just wonder if Waste Management offered to support your next political step, and are we just a stepping stone for you? And at the last meeting, I do have to respond to the elderly gentleman who lives on Alice Drive and said his neighbors support the expansion. Well, I live in the adjoining neighborhood, and I have 4 friends who live on Alice Drive, and not one of them is in support of the expansion, so I'm not sure who he's trying to represent. So again, I ask, what is your end game? Other than the money that the landfill gave you for your election and put up those big signs all over the township, could you please give us a reason why you are supporting a hole to bury trash that's coming from New York and New Jersey? Have you seen the 5-minute video of the massive trucks turning into the landfill? It was truck after truck after truck. I have to tell you, I was shocked. I thought there were trucks like maybe that come to pick my garbage up. No, these were semi-trailers that were massive. And I bet all that trash wasn't coming from Lower Saucon. Please do the right thing. Not sure if you have kids or grandkids, but please think about their health and the future. And where's John? Congratulations to your wife making the primary. I hope she knows what she's in for.
All right, thank you. All right, I believe that now concludes the public comment on agenda. They are. When we get to your council, you can read them. It's not public comment. They're not public comments. They're sent in. They weren't requested to have been published during the meeting, so you can read them. All right, Priscilla, I'm not recognizing you to have the floor, okay? All right, so that concludes the public comment on agenda items. So we will move on to presentations, hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. The first one that we have is a review of the prepared ordinance 2023-04 for the zoning map amendment. The potential map amendment would be in the area east of Route 378 and north of Colesville Road, changing the zoning district from R40 rural suburban residential to GB general business for the 4 identified parcel numbers. And before council is consideration of the authorization to commence the MPC adoption process and advertise the ordinance for a public hearing. Link, do I need to read the entire proposed ordinance to satisfy any advertising or other legal requirements?
No, you do not. But I think for council's sake, if we can put the map up, Stacy, please. So this ordinance, as we discussed at the last council meeting and also earlier this year, would change, proposes to change 4 parcels of land, which is where the red arrow is pointing, from the current zoning designation to GB. It's 4 parcels of land that you have the tax map parcel numbers in your materials. That's the only thing that this ordinance does, would be to change the map in the manner that I just described. And if council wants to move forward, then we would need a motion to commence the MPC process, advertise the ordinance for a public hearing, and send it out to the LVPC, the Lower Saucon Planning Commission, and the EAC for their review.
Let's start on my right. We'll start with Tom today. Tom, do you have any questions or comments about this?
No, I mean, I think, GB right there.
Use the mic, please. Can't hear you.
No. No comments. Priscilla?
I'm not in support of this.
Link, just so that I'm clear, what is being proposed here was actually originally proposed as part of our adoption of some rezoning on 378, and due to some clerical issue, these parcels or this area was not included in that prior rezoning, correct?
Yes, we had discussed it back earlier this year, and I don't remember the number. It was either 2023-01 or 2 was the ordinance where we changed some other parcels along the 378 corridor.
Okay, I have no other questions, thanks. Mark?
No, I'm good.
Sandy, you're participating by phone. Do you have any questions about this or any comments?
Oh, no, I do not. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Thanks, Sandy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion to authorize township staff and the solicitor to commence the MPC adoption process and advertise the ordinance for a public hearing, and to send this to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, the Lower Saucon Township Planning Commission, and the EAC for their review.
I'll second.
And if I could just point out that the township manager and I have discussed this, and we are guessing that the public hearing for this particular ordinance would be on September 20th, your September meeting.
That's fine, I can make that part of my motion, September 20th. Tom, is that fine with you for the second?
Yes.
Okay. Mark, would you call the roll?
Jason, Mr. Benonis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right, next up is the review of the prepared ordinance 2023-05 for the zoning map and text amendments. The potential map amendment would be in the area north of Apple Butter Road, east of Steel City, south of Lehigh River, and west of Route 33, Route 78 intersection. The proposal is to change the zoning district from RA, rural agricultural, to light industrial. The potential text amendments may include allowing landfills and waste disposal facilities as a permitted conditional or special exception use, site plan requirements for uses that require land development approval, and a natural resources mitigation alternative. 2 maps and 2 lists of parcel numbers have been provided by staff for consideration. Council will need to determine the specific parcel numbers to be included in the rezoning proposal, and we will presumably consider authorization to commence the NPC adoption process and advertise the ordinance for a public hearing. Link, to be clear, do I need to read the entire proposed ordinance to satisfy any advertising or other legal requirements?
No, you do not.
All right. Link, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I just wanted to point out for council, if you could put up the first map, Stacy, please. The map that you're looking at now contains 66 tax map parcels. It is the map that was generated from the direction of council at your last meeting. And that map that you're looking at proposes to change the zoning of those parcels, and those parcels are also identified by tax map parcel number and address, along with the acreage on one of the exhibits in your materials. So the proposal would change those parcels from RA to LI, which is light industrial. You also have in your packet an option 2. Could you put up that map, please, Stacy?
These are our homes.
Option 2 contains the 7 parcels that were the subject of the ordinance from last year that rezoned those parcels from RA to LI again. So what we wanted to do for council was to show you the request that you made at the last council meeting, the map that we had adopted previously that, as has been discussed, was overturned by the Court of Common Pleas, and council will need to direct us if you want to use option 1, the map from option 1, if you want to use the map from option 2, or if there's something in the middle.
Link, to be clear, the order that came from the Court of Common Pleas with regard to option 2 was based upon the court's determination that the description that was prepared and submitted, which consisted of literally over 100 words, if not more, was insufficiently specific or descriptive enough, and further that what was advertised did not provide appropriate or adequate notice to potential objectors, even though there were no objectors who came forward who said that they didn't know about it, correct?
That's correct. The court's order was based on procedural deficiencies. All right. One other thing, sorry. The ordinance that you have in front of you also would change the landfill use from a special exception use, which it is today currently, to a permitted use in the LI zoning district. It also has some other language that was contained in the prior ordinance as well. One thing that I noticed yesterday when reviewing the ordinance again is we also need to, if this ordinance were to be adopted, we also need to change the chart that's in the back of the zoning ordinance. So if council votes to advertise this, I will include that change in the advertised ordinance.
What's wrong with the chart?
the chart right now says it's a special exception. So if it gets changed to a permitted use, the chart would need to be changed to permitted use.
Okay, let's start on my right. Tom?
Well, like I said, at the last meeting, if all of it is rezoned, people, they can still live in their houses. They still enjoy the property as it is. It would be up to the individual town.
Let's go back to your video game.
So I think I'm for the larger expansion.
Of course you are. It's not in your backyard.
Larger rezone.
What?
Freedom of speech.
All right, Tom, is that all?
Yeah.
All right, Priscilla?
I'd like to read something. I'd like to thank everyone for coming and sticking it out to now. I also would like to state that I object to ordinance 2023-05. I would like to offer my opinion on this devastating abuse of land entrusted to council by the voters. My observations are that there is usually little council discussion on agenda items. There has been no real public planning or input from residents except for their 3 minutes in the beginning of the agenda item prior to any council discussion. It makes you wonder who is making these decisions outside the public meeting. Is there a pre-meeting the public wasn't invited to?
Sure.
848.47 acres affect 66 parcels of rural agricultural land. That's approximately 66 property owners who purchased their property. The signs welcoming you to Lower Saucon State, a zoned community. What a joke. Let's not forget about the conservation easements on the Helms and Reddington tract, or one of the last stretches of forested land along the Lehigh River. This council has proven it has no respect for any landowner or resident. It is not our problem that the landfill owners purchased land and obviously did not do their homework, that the land was not zoned for landfills, or if they did, they purchased it anyway. Let's not forget about the PAC money spent, over $100,000 in super PAC contributions. They operate in a box zoned for landfills. When the box is full, they need to move on. Landfills spoil the land forever. Most of the affected owners also purchased their RA zone land knowing it was not zoned for landfills. Prospective residents even inquired at the township about the zoning of their property. They purchased their RA properties in good faith. After all, we live in a zoned community. We still have vacant storefronts, and this council majority concentrates on our beautiful rolling hills, as we are recognized for its pastoral farmlands, tranquil woodlands, and gentle rolling hills, as stated on our website. I did my homework this morning too.
With my farm on it.
Over my years on council, we stood out in the forefront with our strict environmental regulations and zoning. Now, in my opinion, we are a laughingstock in the community. Coming from a medical background, I was taught to always treat a patient as I would want to be treated. I carried that over to my council role. Did you ever ask yourself who you work for, who you serve? I do. About 10 years ago, I worked with the residents in the area of Meadows Road and the Skibo Road area in a fight to keep out a facility who wanted to change the zoning. The residents won. Phoebe CCR did not. That would have changed the area drastically. We cannot keep changing our area that we moved here for. It's our character, it's who we are. The landfill has zoning boundaries. Stay in your box. As stated previously, it is still sacrilegious, and if you're a Catholic, of mortal sin. Lower Saucon is not for sale, but it sure looks that way in my opinion. My vote is no.
Now, hold on. Okay, hold on, but, you know, you talk about that, they fill their box and they want to expand. You've voted for every expansion over the past 30 years. And not only that, when the conservation easement was put on this property, you failed to put a third-party entity on the conservation easement. You know, you knew this day was coming, and you were hoping you wouldn't have to vote for it, but you left that open. You were president of the council when that happened. You voted for every expansion. You left the door open for further expansion by not putting a third party on that, because you knew this could possibly happen. So maybe the mortal sin is with you from 20 years ago.
Tom, hold on. Ms. Pitchell-McGovern, you understand what the rules are. You've been here at many meetings, okay? This is Mr. Carochi's opportunity to speak.
20 minutes.
Whoever's playing their audio on their phone, please turn it off so we can conduct this meeting. Ms. Pitchell-McGovern, I'm not going to say it again. If you blurt out again, I'm going to ask you to leave. And at that point, if you do not, I'm going to ask the police to remove you, okay?
No problem.
Okay.
I'd like to respond, if I may. First of all, let's start with the easements. Back in 1994, when we placed those easements on there, we had a solicitor. And just like we have a solicitor here giving advice, a solicitor gave the council advice. And back then, it wasn't really, I don't want to say heard of, but it wasn't the practice to put conservation easements on land back in 1994. So we just thought that no other council behind us would ever think of changing them. So we put conservation easements on those Helms and the Reddington tract to preserve the historic, the beauty along the Lehigh River. And I can go on, but I'd like to talk next about why I voted for landfill expansions. Okay, we have a box. The landfill has been zoned light industrial, and they're entitled, like any other property owner in a zoned community, to do whatever is allowed in that zone. And when I go to conferences, I don't know if you do or not, but when I go to conferences, I attend them, and they tell you that if you're presented with a plan and the township is telling you that they meet all of the criteria of your regulations and everything was met, if you vote no to that, they could sue you and you could go to court, and the court could overturn that no decision if all the council members voted no, and there would be no conditions. So I know better than that. I know that if an expansion is and I've explained this to you before, I'm surprised you don't remember this, or you keep asking me to repeat it, and I will every time you do. So whenever they came before us with an expansion, and it was within their zoned, okay, if our consultants told me that, yes, they met everything, Priscilla, I voted yes. And that is why I did that. I have never voted for a landfill, what do I want to call it, rezoning outside that box.
All right, so whenever you were president of council, responsible for putting a budget together that didn't call for large tax increases, you expanded the landfill box every time.
I disagree with that, and the council president, really, that's a lot of control you're giving the council president. I hope our present council president doesn't have that authority.
All right, are you done, Priscilla?
I'll answer any questions.
Okay, well, I'm just moving on to my comments. I'm asking if you're done.
I am at the...
So I'm not looking to engage in any debate here, but I find it peculiar that somebody would seek to blame the lawyer for not having an adequately worded conservation easement when that person is the same person who hired that lawyer. The other part that I find interesting is the concern about potentially being sued. And Stacy, could you bring up the page that I had provided to you? So this is a breakdown of Lower Saucon Township's real estate, and we're 23.3 square miles in Lower Saucon Township, which consists of 15,669 total acres. And if you look at how this is broken down, the percentage of the township that's currently RA, rural agricultural, is 9,587 acres, which is 61% of the township. And then when you add in the residential parts of the township, that's another 5,134 acres, which is 33% of the township. So in total, the parts of the township that are RA and residential make up roughly 94% of the township's footprint. And then when we look at the commercial side, and this isn't just commercial, this is general business commercial, limited general business, light industrial, light manufacturing, office, laboratory, village center. That's a grand total of 948 acres. That's less than 1/10 of the RA space that we have, which is for commercial, light industrial, light manufacturing, office, laboratory, village center, etc. So when you look at those numbers, what's glaring to me, and we had talked about this in prior meetings, is that the township is at risk of being sued as a matter of right by a developer who may want to come in here and... Chief Barnes, would you please come forward? Chief, I would ask if you would stand at the microphone because somebody continues to play their telephone to interrupt the meeting. And if you can identify that person, I would ask that you please remove them from the meeting immediately so we can continue. Thank you. We'll pause for the moment until Chief Barnes resumes so that we can maintain order.
Yeah, it's good that we wait for him to return. Maybe we
Mr. Zimic, I don't need your comments, please, okay? This isn't your public comment period. We're just waiting for the chief to come back. Thank you.
What?
All right, so back to my comments. Chief Barnes returned. Thank you, Chief.
I just want to apologize. It was not Mr. Blasco. He was the only one that had his phone out, but I will be watching, and I did apologize.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Chief, it sounds like...
Now there's a man.
Chief, it sounds like the phone that's making the noise, or the phones, is somewhere up here in the center right. So if you can come up here by the microphone, and maybe...
Folks, can I just please ask? Please obey Mr. Bononis. Don't play.
We're fighting for our home.
Please, I am speaking, okay? I would ask that you don't do the phone anymore, out of courtesy. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so back to my point that I was making. So the commercial portions of the township are less than 10% of the rural agricultural. And we had discussed previously, Link, you could probably speak to this, the concerns that we have that we do not have adequate light industrial designated zoning areas in the township, which could be subject to legal challenge. Can you speak to that, Link?
Yeah, we have had that discussion before, and that 6% number, which is the 6% of all the properties that are zoned something different than RA, rural agricultural or residential, is a low number. None of us have a crystal ball as to what could or couldn't happen in the future, but I can say with, comparably speaking, that's a fairly low number for the location of where Lower Saucon Township is.
And like, what would happen if someone challenged that?
Well,
They
there's...
haven't in 300 years.
Ms. Optoff Cordero, again, I'll remind you of what the requirements are for the meeting, and if it happens again, I'm going to ask you to please leave the meeting, okay?
There is the potential for a property owner to bring what's known as a validity challenge and say that Lower Saucon Township does not have enough land zoned either LI GB, LM, which is the light manufacturing. And if they are successful in that type of a challenge, then they get to put that use wherever they want.
So going back.
Wherever they want, correct, Link?
Yes, they can pick the land that they want.
So going back to the numbers that I was talking about, if you look at, let's just look at the smaller option here, the 275 acres. That 275 acres represents around 2% of the total RA land that we have. And if you look at the RA plus residential land, which totals 14,721 acres, 275 acres that's being proposed here is roughly 1%, only 1% of the entire acreage of the township that's for rural agricultural and residential. I'm just offering that to provide some perspective as to what's being proposed here, as well as the overall makeup of the township, so everyone understands how much of the township remains agricultural and residential, and how underserved we are on the light industrial side of things. That's all I have. Mark?
Well, personally, I believe in the 275. I think the other one's a little large. However, if something should go sideways because of a technicality, I'd like to maybe keep that option open.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mark? Okay. Sandy?
Okay, I'm sorry. It's been cutting in and out, and I apologize. Could you just tell me exactly what could be the wording that is exactly up for vote?
Well, nobody's made a motion yet, Sandy. We're just still having our discussion and debate about what direction we're going to go. After you're done, I expect somebody will make a motion at that point.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, the option one is over the top, and I do not think at this point we should be even considering it. The option two is something we should maybe consider. However, we need to make sure, and I don't know how to do this, maybe Link can chime in on this, but we need to make sure there are buffers between preserved land. We need to make sure, so whether we roll it back on how much we're going to actually rezone, so that we do have the buffers along the river, along Bull Run, along all of the natural areas. Maybe we need to redraw that map a little bit. That way we're guaranteed to keep that into agricultural, but then hopefully then we would have enough to go into light industrial so that we don't run into that problem either, that we don't have enough.
Link,
That's my take on it.
Link, could you address the rezoning versus land development? Because I think that may respond to Sandy's concerns.
Sure, if in fact that land gets rezoned to industrial, to light industrial, and there's an industrial user that proposes some type of use on that land, that user, including the landfill, would have to go through the land development plan process. Priscilla referred to the land development plan process earlier. There are multiple ordinances that apply in that section, and there are multiple restrictions, including buffers from certain natural resources that the landfill and or any other user would need to show they meet before land development plan could be approved.
Address my concerns through the land development process. Is this what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is there are, and I can't name them off the top of my head, but there are multiple restrictions in our subdivision and land development ordinance and in the zoning ordinance that restrict certain uses from where they can do development type activity, including buffers from natural resources. I can't recite them off the top of my head as to what they are, but those are in place now, and anybody coming in with a land development plan and asking for it to be approved would need to show that they meet those requirements.
And Link, if it was the landfill that did that, also the Pennsylvania DEP would weigh in, is that correct?
Yes, as we've discussed many times before, there are multiple approvals that any landfill needs to obtain before they can start building. One of them being DEP.
All right, so we would have the capacity to negotiate that with them to make sure that we have plenty of buffer.
Well, again, we have ordinances in place that have buffer restrictions. I'm not quite sure what you mean by negotiate, but the ordinances that we have in place restrict how close any property owner can go to certain natural resources.
Okay, all right.
But again, they would have to negotiate not negotiate, but put a plan before Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah.
And if they judge that the buffer, for example, between the landfill and the Lehigh River wasn't large enough as proposed by the landfill, they could tell them to make it larger.
A landfill expansion would need to meet our regulations, Lower Saucon Townships, and the DEP regulations, correct?
Okay, all right.
So what is the wording in this thing at the bottom of the first page for the natural resource mitigation alternative? You're kind of canceling out everything that we've built for environmental protection.
The bottom of the first page.
Yeah, the bottom of the amendment page with all the wording in it.
Okay, so page 1 is the bold capitalized language,
Yeah, it's like maybe 5 sentences up or some.
adding, well, I'll read.
You see that on the screen?
Adding section 180-109G to provide for a natural resource mitigation alternative in the light industrial district, that language?
Yeah. I didn't like it in the other ordinance we did around Christmas time, and it's back in here again. I'm sorry, I didn't like it in the December ordinance, and now it's back in here again, so I'm not liking it again.
I just want to, I understand what you're saying, like, I do understand it, but because of the sheer size of potential expansion for the landfill, I think we need to make sure that our ordinances are sufficient to protect the natural things around us. That's my spin on it.
All right, I'm going to make a motion. My motion is going to be to authorize township staff, engineer, solicitor, and anyone else who's required to commence the MPC adoption process and advertise the ordinance for a public hearing and to send to Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and Lower Saucon Township Planning Commission and Lower Saucon Township EAC for review. For a hearing to take place on August 30, 2023 at 9:00 a.m. The proposed ordinance, or the draft ordinance 2023-05, option 2, which is the option that outlines the 275.7 acres as a permitted use, and also change the chart to reflect that it's been changed to permitted use. Is that a sufficient motion, Lincoln?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'll second it, but I would like to have a discussion about the larger map. I guess, I kind of agree with Mark that perhaps that portion should be tabled, because, I just think that fits, has natural boundaries with 7833 in the river, and gives the township more light industrial, protect us from lawsuits. So I'll second the Jason's motion. But I think Mark asked for the second one to be tabled, but I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
Well, let's address the first one. We can have a discussion about the second part.
All right, so I'll second your motion.
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Yerger, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Benonis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
All right, so
I guess my question is just
You guys are a disgrace.
ma'am, please stand down. All right, so
I guess my question is just for him. So we can bring that back. Or,
So we could, Link, is it fair to say that we could authorize you to commence the MPC adoption process for option 1, which is the 848.47 acres, and have that ready and available for a subsequent public hearing after the April 30, 2023 meeting?
After the August one. Yeah.
I'm sorry, August.
Council always has the ability to change other parcels or to propose changing other parcels and have another public hearing. So, yeah, that option is always on the table.
All right, Tom, do you want to make that motion?
yeah, I'll make that motion. If we need a motion, or if we just instruct Link.
I don't think at the moment that we need a motion because this, we already have, it's already prepared. So anytime you want to revive it and bring it back and vote to put it through the process, we can do it because it's already prepared.
Well, but it'd have to be edited because it would be two different ordinances.
Yeah, we'd split it, but all the work is done. We just need to cut it in half.
Could we by motion today approve option 1? And therefore, in the future, we don't have to go through the approval process. We're a hearing like this.
You could approve option 1 and not, if you authorize us to advertise it, then we're starting the whole thing. And we're doing it 2 different times.
But we could approve it now, but not authorize the advertising.
Correct.
But I think Mark wanted to think about it some more. So if we're not, okay. All right, you want to think about it some more and okay.
Who's pulling the strings?
I think that's good then.
Okay, then I guess that concludes that agenda item, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 3, which is reviewing the prepared ordinance 2023-06 for the zoning text amendments that would potentially allow underground storage tanks provided there is compliance with federal and state regulations in the carbonate geology areas, considering authorization to commence the MPC adoption process and advertising the ordinance for a public hearing.
Again, this is another proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance that would allow underground storage tanks in the carbonate geology area, as Mr. Bononis just said, provided that the state and federal regulations are complied with. That's pretty much the sum and substance of it. There's not a lot to it. It's just changing what your regulations are in the carbonate geology area as they pertain to underground storage tanks.
And as I think we discussed previously, the technology has changed with regard to these underground storage tanks that addresses some of the concerns that the prior ordinance had built into it, correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, then I'm going to make unless there's any questions, Tom? Any questions or comments about it?
No, I don't have any comment.
Sandy? I'm sorry, Priscilla?
No.
I don't have any questions, Mark. Sandy?
No.
All right, then I'll make a motion to direct township staff, solicitor and engineer to authorize to commence the MPC adoption process and advertise the draft ordinance 2023-06 for a public hearing to take place.
I would say September 20th on that as well.
On September 20th, 2023.
I'll second.
And send it to the,
And
starting the process means.
Yeah, and send it to LVPC
Means
as well as
LVPC,
Lower
yeah.
Saucon Township Planning Commission and Lower Saucon Township PAC. Is that part of your second, Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. Mark?
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Scherger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Carochi, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right, next we have review of the prepared ordinance 2023-07. The ordinance provides for the submission of a voter referendum at the fall 2023 election that will ask the voters of the township if the township should amend the optional plan of government administrative code to to limit the terms of elected council members to 2 terms, a total of 8 consecutive years. And for consideration is authorization to township staff to commence the adoption process pursuant to the second-class township code and the home rule charter and the optional plans law.
Link, I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can.
If this passes by the town, by the residents, can someone say, okay, they've served their 8 years, they are non-council for 4 years or whatever, can they run again? Just out of curiosity?
Yes, it's just 2 consecutive, we're limited to 2
Okay,
consecutive.
I just wanted,
Yeah.
I assumed that, but I wanted to clarify that. Okay, thank you.
So again, as you said, Jason, this is a fairly simple ordinance too. If it's adopted, a question would go on to the ballot, referendum question would go onto the ballot in the fall election, asking the voters if they approve of a maximum of 2 terms or not.
Tom, any questions, comments?
No, I'm for it.
Priscilla?
Yes, my opinion is the voters have control of this in the voters box, and it's up to them, and I'm not in support of term limits.
Okay. We've already talked about what we believe to be the benefits of term limits. I don't really need to rehash that here. Mark?
I'm good.
Sandy?
I'm good.
All right, I'll make a motion then to direct township staff and the solicitor to commence the adoption process pursuant to the second-class township code and the home rule charter and optional plans law for ordinance 2023-07 to be submitted for a voter referendum at the fall 2023 election that will ask the township voters if the township should amend the optional plan of government administrative code to limit the terms of elected council members to 2 terms, a total of 8 consecutive years.
And this would be brought back for your consideration of adoption on your July 26th meeting.
All right, I'll second.
Mr. Ingles, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Carucci, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Next we have developer items. There are none. Township business items. There are none. Miscellaneous business items. There are none. Council and staff reports. Township manager, Mark, do you have any report?
No report.
Okay. We do not have a junior council member. Let's start on the right. Tom, any council report?
Yes. Mark, there was something I think you overlooked. The Cindy Otis resigned from the EAC, and under the EAC article, it says when a voting member resigns, the township manager will notify council of the resignation and post the vacancy through notification in the newsletter and on the website. Please do that. Ms. Otis did resign. She moved out of the area. We thank her for her service while she was here. That needs to be posted. And then EAC will make a recommendation after it's been posted for a while to council. Okay. Got updated pool numbers. 80 reimbursements so far for a total of $4,820. We have 9 youth pool memberships, 6 adult memberships, 32 senior memberships, and 33 family memberships. And that is for a total of 80. And 71 are using the Hellertown pool, and 9 are using the Southern Lehigh, the Seleco pool. So thank you, Kathy and township staff, for reimbursing these people for their pool memberships. Library, as of today, total of 282 reimbursements for $9,780. 207 family reimbursements and 75 individual reimbursements. And just on another note, I saw where Noel Kramer, I guess, is resigning as the head of the Hellertown Library. And I know, Southern Lehigh has set a committee up apparently to discuss shared library services. And I know their director is also retired. So I hope they use this as an opportunity to possibly work with Hellertown and Southern Lehigh Library, work together. I know both library directors, well, I think, we're there for a while. I know, I believe Lynette did not have like a master's in library science or something, whatever the requirements that the Office of Commonwealth Library does. And I don't think Noel had it either, and they had to get exemptions every year, is my understanding. And, it'd be great if they could hire one library director for both and work together so that the community could have a great library system at both ends of the rail trail. And, I think because you look at these numbers, 282 cards, we're a township of almost 12,000 residents. It's far from the numbers that were represented to us by the Hellertown Library Board of 3,100 and some residents regularly using the library with their cards when they tried to extort us out of $750,000. So hopefully they can work together. We'll see. We'll see if it's all about politics for them, or if they really have the desire to build a library or have a library system that's relevant, that more than 282 card holders will use, and that's relevant not just now, but has a plan to be relevant in the next 5, 10, 20 years. That I could get behind financially supporting. Anything less than that, the programming that they currently have, it's worth about what these residents say it's worth, about $9,780 for 282 cards. And I hope more people will come in for reimbursements for their card, get cards and get reimbursed, because I'd like to see more usage than that, especially if we're going to talk about spending upwards of $750,000, $1 million over the next 5 to 10 years in library services. That's just fiscally irresponsible to do something like that with these usage numbers. But I understand the programming has to get better, and they have to be more than just floor-to-ceiling books. They have to have programming, and they have to have digital assets. Now, one other thing with I guess, well, they left. I was going to address the Lehigh professor and the St. Luke's person, but I guess they left. So that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Tom. Priscilla?
Yes, I would just like to say thank you. I'd just like to say Noelle is moving out of the area, and that was the purpose of her resignation. So I also would like to read the 2 letters that I wasn't allowed to read earlier. This was an email from Paul Tucker, received July 11th this morning. Dear members of Lower Saucon Township Council, I'm a 17-year resident of Lower Saucon Township, and I am unable to attend the beginning of the July 11th meeting due to a previous commitment. I therefore will be unable to present my views in person, but for the record, I want to express my continuing opposition to this council's efforts to rezone the area near the Bethlehem landfill. Specifically, I want to express my opposition to the prepared ordinance 2023-05 that is to be reviewed at the July 11th council meeting. I cannot add anything new or original to the landfill discussion. The landfill expansion has been discussed in forever at meetings, online, and in the press. I oppose landfill expansion for all of the often mentioned environmental issues. It is clear that I am not alone. I ask you to consider what seems to be overwhelming opposition to this expansion by the majority of Lower Saucon residents. Respectfully, Paul Tucker. And I have another one that came in also this morning. Dear Lower Saucon Township Council, I am writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed rezoning of the area near the Bethlehem landfill. I am a resident of the township and a member of the EAC. I have been following the issue of the landfill expansion, and I believe that this rezoning would be a disaster for our community. I am unable to attend the July 11th council meeting as I work during these hours, but I wanted to make my views known on the record. I strongly oppose any changes to the zoning or ordinance that would allow the landfill to expand. This expansion would have devastating impact to our community, both environmentally and economically. The landfill is already a major source of pollution in the area. It has been linked to air pollution, water contamination, and the spread of disease. Rezoning the area would make the problems worse. I would allow the landfill to expand. It would allow the landfill to expand, which would increase the amount of pollution it produces. It would also make it easier for other businesses to operate in the area, which could bring even more pollution. In addition to the environmental concerns, I am concerned that the impact of the rezoning on our community. The landfill is a major eyesore, and it has a negative impact on property values in the area. Rezoning the area would only make the landfill more visible, and it would further decrease property values. I urge you to vote against the proposed rezoning. This is a bad deal for our community, and it is not worth the risk. Thank you for your time and consideration, Jennifer Helton. And she's on the EAC as stated in the letter. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. I don't have anything beyond what Tom had talked about regarding the library issues. Mark?
Just one thing. Mark, I think they're doing the fence in Steel City today?
They said they were coming in this week.
No, they're doing it.
I think they started it today.
They're doing
Okay.
it.
All right, well, that's good news. Okay.
That's all? Okay. Sandy? Sandy, you still with us?
Yes, I did. Sorry, it kind of cut out a little bit.
Do you have any council reports, Sandy?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, solicitor? All right, Brian? No. Engineer report? No report, okay. That brings us to public comment, non-agenda items, residents, taxpayers only, 3-minute time limit. First name is Mark O. Mark O. Stacy, start the clock. We're not going to stand here while Mr. Resident collects his thoughts.
Start the clock.
That's okay, because when we're done here, there's a public out there. He can't shut me up out there. Remember that. So, non-agenda items. Non-agenda items. I guess my rant on Facebook that didn't get me banned caught your attention because you brought the card and the letter with you and you read it all out loud and spelled out the words. And just like you do to me, you're doing to everybody else. Sitting there playing with your stuff. But that's okay. That's okay. Crap rolls down here. Downhill. I don't know. I guess the 5 hours I spent 40 feet in the rafters this morning at 5 a.m. Spent all my time up there talking to God and asking Him to help us. Help us all. Help me. At least He's kept my loyalty to the 10 Commandments so far in this day and age in my life. So, yeah, you need to think about the future. You need to think about the kids. How your grandson or granddaughter might want to go swimming in that river full of sludge. one day. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words for some stuff. 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, 30. And counting, like waiting for the space shuttle to shoot off and go to the moon. Well, anyway, we're gonna have to make more of the public aware of all of this, like door to door, right to the next door neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Next is Laura Ray. Okay. Next is Dave Belen.
I want to thank the council and the staff for having available online all the documentation that was presented here today, including the report from the DEP, which I have read extensively, which shows the reasons why the landfill actually is beneficial versus why it is not. And this was prepared Pennsylvania DEP.
This is not agenda.
I'm talking about information. You know what that is? Okay, good enough. That information is available, and that's what I'm talking about. It's all there, whether you like this or not. You can read it all, and I have. And I think it would be really great if people would make references to some of the outrageous claims they have about who's taking what and doing what. If they could simply refer us to some kind of proof, for instance, why things are good or why they're bad for whatever it may be, that's really helpful for at least me to understand and keep straight. Because you know what, I don't have a leader that sits here and tells me what to say and what not to. And by goodness, this council, some of them have felt some heat from me, maybe in private, maybe not. So, but I don't get up here and yell and complain. I try to improve this situation, not make it worse. So that's it. Got plenty of time. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments, and you're right. The Pennsylvania DEP, granted a realignment to this current landfill because they were doing a good job meeting environmental concerns. Now these are secretaries of the Department of Environmental Protection appointed by Democratic governors for about the past 10 years. So they say they're doing a good job. So these claims from people about everything under the sun are ridiculous and are not proven according to the DEP.
I believe the document you were referring to was the harms benefit analysis that the department prepared, I'm guessing November, December. Was that what you were reading online?
Am I allowed to respond? Are we going to have a back and forth with Mrs. De Leon?
It's up to you if you want to respond to her, to answer her question. It seems like she's trying to get clarification from you as to what you're responding to. So if you want to identify it, I believe the report that you may be referring to is more recent than that, but I don't know. You don't have to respond to her if you don't want to.
I would just ask for clarification. If there's more than one, if you'll clarify which one, then I can respond. I'm not going to give an open answer.
Okay, that's fine. I can look on the website myself.
Good. I think that's a good thing.
I do that.
I think all the council should do that.
I routinely do. One of the reasons why we have that information on the website for all the residents.
That's why you get paid as much as you do. You should know it inside and out.
$3,250.
That's more than me.
That's all we get.
35 years. 35 years.
To be clear, several of us don't get paid anything. And with regard to the letters that Mr. Belan is referring to, we actually received those via email from township staff as they're received by DEP. So not only are they available on the website to council members, they're also sent to us individually. Right, so I'll move on. Next is Cesar Medina. Medina.
Practice makes perfect. 2594 Reddington Road, Hellertown. 2594 Reddington Road, Hellertown, PA. So, no agenda items. Again, I came from New York, went to several meetings and different councils and exposed to government in many ways. Just wondering the 3-minute limit where we pushing all the time, wrapping up your statements. That whole thing can be dismissed by just keeping the 5-minute standard, which is everywhere in the United States, basically. It sends a bad message about the transparency of this committee and the interest in this committee for the people that serve. It just sends a wrong message. And I think it's important to keep the image as well as to keep everything in order when it comes to in the House and the rules when we are addressing each other. But it's something else that caught my eye is the definition of tyranny. And it says that it's a cruel, harsh, unfair, unreasonable, arbitrary use of power in which the person or small group of people have power over everyone else. I'm taking that home, and I hope you all do, because I think we're walking in very thin ice. The world is very, very unstable. The Second Amendment was created and amended for check and balances and for our own good. People, don't mistake it. All of these folks, they got everything on the line. They got things at stake. As the landfill has things at stake. But when it comes to the tire meets the ground, we all have to make sure that we're standing on the right side of things. Because there's no turning back when we pass that point of no return. And I just want you to think and ponder about it. We have to do things right.
Thank you. Next is Robert Blasco. Robert Blasco.
Okay, Mr. Bononis, at the last meeting, Kathy Pittrell McGovern quoted several articles about the Lehigh River, air quality in the Lehigh Valley, and local cancer rates, all revealing the already dismal state of pollution in the Lehigh Valley. After her 3 minutes were up, Mr. Bononis stated that she was lying. Kathy had sent a copy of her findings to the council members previous to the meeting. She wanted her letter to be read by council into the minutes in case she could not make the meeting, so council had the opportunity to do their own research regarding her claims. I decided to research the matter for myself, as calling someone a liar is a very serious matter. And there is a reason that the press is very resistant to doing that, especially in public. It can impugn an individual's reputation. This is a serious matter. it can expose the accuser to possible legal action, as it requires something very difficult to do, and that's why the press doesn't do it. It requires the accuser to prove that the person being called a liar did it with the intent to purposely mislead or deceive. In my research, I found that the severity of the pollution and cancer rates in the area conveyed by Mrs. McGovern were truthful. I will quote several news articles from which Mrs. McGovern garnered her information, again with the foreknowledge of the council, and another online news article to confirm her reporting is truthful. As reported in the Lehigh Valley News article dated April 22nd, 2023, authored by Steve Novak, and the headline reads, Lehigh River named one of America's most endangered. Here's what you can do about it. What a distinction. One of America's most endangered rivers. Reported in the Philadelphia Inquirer news article dated April 18, 2023, authored by Frank Coomer, headline, Lehigh River named as one of America's most endangered rivers in U.S. Again, not just Pennsylvania, not just locally, in the entire United States, due to rampant warehouse developments. It goes on to list the Lehigh River as the 7th most endangered river in the United States. Lehigh Valley News article, October 6, 2021, authored by Steve Novak, again, headline, Lehigh Valley air quality still among worst in Pennsylvania, new report says. Lehigh Valley Regional News headline, toxic chemicals in Emmaus water could cost at least...
Okay, Mr. Blasker, your 3 minutes are up. If you could wrap up your thoughts, please.
Sure. At least $24 million to fix. The boroughs filed a lawsuit. DEP found elevated levels of PFAS, which are forever chemicals. Would take 24 to 30 months to implement treatment at a cost of $24 to $30 million. That's $4.8 to $6 million per well, as there were only 5 wells involved.
Thank you. All right, next is Sal Galliano.
Sal Galliano, 2530 Wolfpack Run. Wow, what can I say? I can't follow much about that. Like I said before, this is America. For the people, by the people, of the people. I clearly don't see how anybody does anything anymore for the people. Only for themselves. I've heard a lot of stuff, seen a lot of stuff, and I have to admit, this is by far the worst. I have not more much to say, but gee, wow. This is supposed to be a democratic republic, not a Soviet socialist republic of socialism where you duly elected people decide suddenly that what's good for us and what's not good for us. I don't get it. Gee. Mr. Carochi, your phone die or something?
Yeah, still up battery.
Wow.
But you were a little entertaining this time, so I figured I'd listen.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're nice. You're having a smile.
Well, I don't have much more else to say, but...
You got 2 minutes.
I'm actually ashamed to be a part of this community.
I'm not.
Well... That's because you're not affected by anything you're doing up there.
All right. I live here.
You live here, but you ain't affected by any of it. The only thing that's affecting you is your pocketbook.
Okay, I've never taken a dime for Saucon Township.
That's much to be desired.
That's Priscilla next to me.
That's much to be desired.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm still here though.
I think Sandy also takes the money.
Everybody takes money.
No, I'm talking about the stipend that we're supposed to get to serve on.
Priscilla, this is a gentleman's opportunity to speak.
That's all right.
It's not your time. You want to take up his time? Take up his time.
Comment. I'm not saying that you get a stipend. You do it. You're here. You're getting paid for that time. I understand that. I wasn't accusing anybody of not taking anything like that. It's where the other part went. It's where the other part goes. I really would like to see you guys start working for the community and the better. Really, where does that landfill anything and changing the zone really benefit this community? I'm not talking just about my little community down here at the bottom of the hill where no man's land is. I'm talking about the whole community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Cindy McKellen. Cindy McKellen.
Cindy McKellen. I would like to address Mr. Carochi regarding the library, because right now the library services that we have access to allow us to take out books from Hellertown Library. We're not allowed to do any digital types of services with the cards that they're allowing us to have because of the way the library is set up right now.
You should go to the Philadelphia Free Library, go online, get your library card, and you get digital assets there. And they'll also put a state access thing on the back of your card. I have a card that has that.
And we can't get any, if Hellertown doesn't have the book, they will not get it from one of the other resource libraries. So I wanted to make that clarification.
That's between you and Hellertown, ma'am. We don't control the Hellertown Library. It's its own separate.
You're not offering
nonprofit.
library services to us. So.
Sure, we are. We are.
We're offering.
We've given 282 cards out.
We're offering you a reimbursement for library services to any library that will give you a library card. Whoever you can get a library card is between you and the library, not this township.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to talk at you, because that is all it is. You do not hear, much less listen to what the residents of the township you represent have to say. You barely look up and make eye contact with those speaking. This shows how much interest you have in what we have to say. I'm told that you will not answer my questions. Why is that? Oh, that's a question. Never mind, you won't answer. But what I really want...
We just did.
You're using time.
What I really want is an opportunity to have an open public dialogue with you where you explain and help us understand why expanding a mountain of garbage is a good thing for Lower Saucon Township at the expense of wooded habitat, properties with conservation easements, and pollution of groundwater in the Lehigh River. Don't tell me that it's the host fees that will help keep our taxes low. If that were the case, why do we even have a tax rate that we do? Oops, another question. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I also would like to understand what you have in mind for the rezoned area off of 378 and Colesville Road. Owners of Black River Winery, who conveniently wrote a letter of support for the dump expansion, own a lot of the land around this area. It makes me suspicious, which I wouldn't be if you could just explain your motives. I will no longer patronize Black River Winery because I don't trust them any more than I trust you. If we move along to things that have to deal with Mr. Bononis' relationship with Hellertown, that has caused a whole lot of conflict, unnecessary spending, and outrage from Lower Saucon residents. These things include the library, which is an utter embarrassment, compost resource...
All right, Ms. McKellen, you've reached your 3-minute time limit. I'll give you a little more time if you want to wrap up this thought.
Please explain yourself. Grammatically, that last sentence is a command, not a question. So maybe you'll answer.
Okay, thank you. Last is Kurt Balch.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Горбач, я жил на Reading Road, улице. Извините, I'm
Start the
sorry,
clock, please.
I'm sorry. My name's Kurt Balch, I live on Reddington Road. I get mistaken, some things are going on, I was thinking I was back in Russia. Very difficult. As a penance, I once again feel obligated to remind my neighbors that I voted for this travesty of American civics. They have willfully and wantonly failed to represent the foundational principles of republicanism, which I self-identify as. Those being that the only legitimate government is one based on the consent of the governed, and that the powers of that government must be limited. I can only speculate in my closest as to what enticements would lead such esteemed professionals to forswear their priorities, speculations that I understand verge on libelous, so I'll save them for less public discourse, and instead ask that our fine media representatives consider devoting themselves to their investigation in my stead. But there is no getting around the simple reality that we are the governed and that we do not consent. There is no getting around the fact that the powers of this government must be limited. To maliciously drive a wedge between the township and the borough vis-a-vis the library, the community pool, and the compost center over what we can only surmise is personal animus is beyond the pale. To spitefully triple down on zoning changes against the will of property owners and then hold them like the sword of Damocles above their head is unfathomable. I consider characterizing these actions intended to harm our community to being much like a stiff kick to the Karachi. But I really thought about it more, and I have to defer to my good friend and neighbor in describing the monkey business that we seem to be dealing with in this township on a regular basis, and that is, it's bananas.
Thank you. That concludes the non-agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn? I'll make the motion to adjourn. Second? Anyone second?
Second. Denied. How's that?
Mr. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bananas, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes. Meeting closed.
Thanks for coming.
But that's why I saw your question, but
Oh, gee, she has to work. We can have meetings where the rest of us have to work, but it's okay for her running for council to say, I can't come to the lady. She's praised for it. She's never been here.
What's that? I don't play poker very well.
What's that?
I don't play poker very well. I am who I am, and I am what I am. I try the best I can. Well, see, but people have to be careful because there's a couple of people that might get sued.
Bullshit.
Are you taping me? You're still taping?
Yeah, I know what I said. Come here.
Are you still taping, Lauren?
Yeah. You want to finish what you were saying?
Not here.
Okay.
So light industrial. But like, I guess I can see a difference so like, so one of those warehouses like that. So I could say, is there any argument with the fact that you have one of those occupying 10 acres, occupying 10 acres, and then well, do you know what I mean? Like that's what they
Priscilla. Oh, thank you. And then they did it 10 years ago. Thank you. You're welcome. So I think it's more than down. You and me?
Was that your son over there too?
Yeah, that's right after there.
None of these courts were, right, Stacy?
Oh, that's
None of these courts for.
You'd have to ask him. I'm not sure.
Yeah.